Hello, I'm Shivani. Welcome back. This is the Curly Bookworm. What I found with booktube is that it's a lot of YA, which is young adult, and a lot of fantasy. But interestingly, there's a whole bunch of people who don't know how to get into fantasy. They're kind of afraid of fantasy. So today I want to give you 5 of my recommendations. You can try any of these if you're beginning fantasy, and if you're overwhelmed and you're wondering, where do I start in this big bad world of fantasy? Why fear when Shivani's here? So corny. That's very corny. Sorry. If part of why you like reading is because you want to escape, you want to discover new worlds, then fantasy is the thing for you. This video is really about trying to initiate you, if you haven't started reading fantasy, into fantasy. So today I'm not going to be talking about my favorite fantasy books because it'll involve some high fantasy and some like crazy characters and crazy world building. For example, The Game of Thrones. It's one of my most favorite series, but I don't want to suggest it because I feel like it is really intimidating. So let's start with the basics. Let's start off with the most popular one, Harry Potter. Every time I see Harry Potter or hold a Harry Potter book, I feel like it makes me smile. A lot of people on booktube grew up on Harry Potter, and that wasn't the case for me. I was a teenager when I was reading it, well into my teens. So I wasn't affected by it as a child, but I was affected by it as an adult, which I think is a very unique experience. So if you feel like, for example, that you're too old for Harry Potter, or Harry Potter is for kids, it's really not the case. It's such a great book to start off your fantasy journey with. A lot of you may have already watched the movies, so you might think, hey, I watched the movie, so what's the big deal? But the words in this book, and if you're a person that really likes words and stories and books, then you should read this book even if you've seen the movie, simply because it's such a great story to start your whole fantasy journey with. So yeah, my first recommendation will always be Harry Potter if you're starting out with fantasy. Another option that you have is Eragon. This is a series of 4 books. I started my fantasy journey with Eragon. This is about a boy who finds a sort of like a blue stone in the forest, and he's like, hey, I can make money off of this, because he's just like a village boy and he's always looking for extra money. And he takes it home and he keeps it, and he decides that, oh, there's something weird happening with this. And the next thing you know, there's a dragon baby coming out of it, which is amazing because my favorite characters, some of my favorite characters in any fantasy series are dragons. I love dragons and I love witches. So it must come as no surprise to you. The first book that I gave you had witches in them, and the second book that I'm showing you has dragons in them. I don't know why, but I'm fascinated by both the whole wizardry world as well as dragons. Every time they enter any sort of fantasy series, I get super excited and I'm just like, this is amazing. This book is going to be amazing. Apart from dragons, this has, dwarfs and fae, and oh, it's such a good series. So if you're starting out, this is a good book, you guys. The next one that I want to talk about is a more adult series. It's more new adult, it's not really adult. It is Throne of Glass. This will come as no surprise to any of you who've been following this channel. I started Throne of Glass like 6 months ago, and there are about 5 books out. At this point, this series is about a girl who is an assassin who basically is hired by the king to do all his bad work, and her adventures after that. This is a great series to start off with because it's a super quick read. It is super pacey. Things happen really quick. It's very easy to understand in terms of what is going on. There's no high level world building. The primary reason I enjoyed this book is because it has some super kick-ass female characters, and if you think that you'd enjoy something like that, then you should definitely pick up the series. Another genre that I really enjoy in the fantasy space is fairy tales. So anything that sounds fairy tale-y, I'm really excited by, because fairy tales do have dragons and they have witches and wizards and all of that. So the next one that I want to recommend, therefore, is Uprooted. This one is about this village girl who gets taken into a castle by a wizard, and she thinks that he's really evil and that he's going to kill her at some point, because the people who get taken never come back, and they're taken every few years. So in her opinion, she's not going back to her village, except that's not what happens. I must warn you that the magic system isn't like super advanced as far as world building goes, and that's okay. I didn't mind it because I felt like there was a lot of other stuff. There was a lot of fantasy elements that I really enjoyed. There were these big trees and trees that could move and things like that. Which, you know, like in a lot of ways, I enjoy fantasy that is sort of childish in that it really activates your imagination. So this book is a really good one if you're picking up fantasy for the first time, simply because it's very fairy tale, and a lot of us while growing up are sort of familiar with fairy tales. What's also nice about this book, especially if you're beginning reading fantasy, is that it is a standalone. It very rarely happens, but this is a standalone book. So if you feel like you're intimidated by the fact that there will be series in fantasy, and I don't want to like commit to 25 books at the same time, I understand. Try and pick up Uprooted because I think, if I'm not wrong, it is a standalone. The next book that I want to talk about is Binti. I read this a few months ago. It's a super short novella. I really freaking enjoyed it. I really did. And if you're starting out fantasy, guys, I really recommend that you pick this one up simply because it's super small. It took me like a few hours to finish it. It was like 110 pages or something like that. This is clearly set in the future about a girl, Binti, who is moving to another planet to study. She's the only one of her African tribe that has been selected to go to this other planet to study. She's super excited. Her parents and her tribe are people who've never left their native place, so they don't encourage it, but she takes this bold step and she ventures out, and stuff happens to her, and it's a nice story. It's a quick read. So those were the 5 books that I recommend you start with. You can start with any one of those, or you can do all 5 of those. Let me know what you think of it. Leave me your thoughts in the comments. I really hope it inspires you to pick up at least one book and start your journey in fantasy. Believe me, it's a great genre. It's not my favorite genre, but it does come close. As a genre, I really hope you discover it, and I hope you fall in love with it the way I have. If you have read fantasy and you're still watching this video, thank you. Let me know which books you started your fantasy journey with. I would love to know. And so I gotta go. In the meanwhile, do the liking, the sharing, the subscribing, and all of that jazz. I will see you next time. Bye!